Prynhawn everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of PGCE TV Extras Reflection on Professional Standards. It's Chris again, and I'm here with James. The focus of this episode is to look at L1 and L2.
So yeah, as Chris said, we're going to be focusing on L1, which is taking responsibility for self, as well as L2, which is exercising corporate responsibility. Now, me and Chris have been speaking, and we found that when we are evidencing our work, we haven't necessarily found a lot of research papers. So for this, we're going to be discussing everything that we have done, which we've tagged onto our PLP.
There's definitely been easier ones to evidence. I feel like most of these, especially these two, they're more about your actions as opposed to pieces of paper that you can screenshot and record. So yeah, we're going to cover these all in today's focus, and we'll see where we go from there. So the first one we have is, as James said, is L1, taking responsibility for self. So the descriptor we have on our standards is the teacher demonstrates professional attitudes and behaviours, developing positive relationships with learners, parents, careers and colleagues, which illustrate a personal commitment to the fundamental principles of equity and of maximising the potential of all learners. I feel like this is probably the biggest one because this is all about our own accountability. This is why we're teachers, because we should be building up relationships. We should be having those moments, our own CPD. But as we said, it's quite a tough one to kind of evidence because there's not so much paperwork involved for this one. So as me and James said, we were talking about it, and the biggest thing we can kind of do is it more comes from feedback we receive. So whether that's feedback that we get from teachers, other class teachers, our mentors, our senior mentors, and even the children, or anything we get from parents. So it's quite tough. In the past, we've said, and we've come on here and we've gone, oh yeah, you can get to reach capable, you can evidence it this way, you can evidence it that way. But yeah, this one's slightly more challenging. So it is all about what your mentor writes down in your little blue book, on your progress reviews, on your observation forms. These are all ways to how we can meet capable. It's all about your actions.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It is our actions, and I believe having the conversation with your class mentor and your senior mentor, logging them as reflection, and then embedding these into your lesson plans, I think is a solid evidence piece to reach capable as well.
Yeah, so in terms of our experiences of L1 in our placements, the first one I kind of want to talk about is, and again, it's the most important one, is building the relationships. Going into that school on the first day is daunting. I remember the nerves and the slight bit of anxiety thinking, oh, what if this isn't a positive environment? What if this isn't a welcoming environment? You hear so many war stories, and I've spoken to teachers in the past and students on this course, and they've gone in and they said they haven't enjoyed the time there. They haven't enjoyed the time on the placement, and I've kind of said, okay, what did you do? How has it got to that? And he's like, and they were like, oh, the teachers don't speak to me. I don't get a lot back. All right, what have you done about it? And it just, all you need to do is you go in there, you're bright, you're bubbly, you have that personality. We're all here for the same reason. We're all here because we want to develop. Building relationships should be the bread and butter of this one.
Yeah, and I was going to say, definitely try and build that rapport with your class mentor and your teaching assistants. But not only that, if you can and if you're able to, have a chat with the deputy head or even the head teacher themselves. Get to know about their hobbies. Have a nice, it doesn't have to be a long chat. It could be like a 2-minute, 3-minute chat. Get to know them a bit more. And you never know, that could work in your favor, because coming at the end of the academic year, there may be a job available and they may approach you to say, I think you should apply for it.
We've also got like Class Dojo and social media. So my school use Class Dojo, and it's a really powerful tool for behavior side of it, but also for integrating with parents, commenting with parents. Can be used through social media, Class Dojo, sharing the children's work, any upcoming announcements. They're all ways of things I've done with my school. And again, they can be used as evidence if you're screenshotting them.
We've got next now, observations in Blue Book. It's something you've mentioned many times now. And for me, in my experiences with observations, especially when I first went into the classroom, I wanted to observe the class mentor and try and incorporate her strategies into my day-to-day teaching. Like, I didn't want to go in there and say, right, I am changing everything now, and this is how we're going to run my lessons. No, I observed the lessons, I saw her strategies, and to help the pupils get familiar with myself as a teacher and to stay connected with the classroom environment, I adopted her plans into my lessons. And that also reflects on building relationships as well. So
Yeah, you're
building,
singing off the same hymn sheet. It makes it a lot
exactly,
easier.
absolutely, yeah. So build a relationship with the class mentor as well as the students. For me, it was I wouldn't say a no-brainer. It was something I really wanted to do, and it's really helped me build that relationship with everyone involved. Every time I'm teaching a lesson, I'm always getting notes from the class mentor on where I can improve. And I know we're going to talk about L2, where we taking responsibility for self. You know, whatever notes she has, I'll look into them, I'll reflect on them, and I'll try and embed them into my next lesson plans. I know your class mentor uses the blue book with you, Chris, doesn't she?
Yeah, but like you said, it's taking responsibility for yourself because you've been given feedback to how you can improve yourself as a teacher, and you haven't just gone, huh, I know what I'm doing, I don't need to take that into account. You're looking to apply that, so therefore you are taking responsibility for yourself. You want to develop yourself, you're using feedback, using research. They're all little examples on leadership. They sum up taking responsibility for yourself. We all want to develop, we all want to be better, and these are avenues why. And it's the same with progress reviews. Observations, blue book, progress reviews all kind of come under the same banner because they're all kind of opinions and stuff from your mentors, from your senior mentors. But they're fantastic evidence. But if you've got your class mentor saying James is doing this or Chris is showing this, it's so important and it's so impressive for people because you're showing you're doing it and it's there in black and white or blue or pink, whatever color pen your mentor's using. It's there to say you are showing it. If that's coming through in enough of your observations or enough of your progress reviews, there's no reason why you shouldn't be hitting capable. You shouldn't be hitting or QTS because at the end of the day, that's somebody saying that you're doing it.
No, absolutely. And then that kind of leads us on to the final point that we've got here with our experiences is, especially if you want to reach capable, it is, I believe, in my opinion, it's essential that we go out there and engage in CPD opportunities, so continuing professional development opportunities. I was in a very fortunate position. The school that I'm based in now, they held a prevent training afternoon. And this was basically talking about radicalization, how we can spot it and how we can prevent it from going further really in a child's life. And the course is, radicalization is a horrendous thing. But now that being on the course, I'm now aware of what I'm looking out for, what I need to do to prevent anything from happening. And I got a certificate now to show that I've been on a course and I've educated myself. So putting this onto PLP, tagging it under L1 is a strong piece of evidence to suggest that I'm going above and beyond what is expected of me, especially now for this course and for us to reach capable.
Mate, like you're being proactive.
Yes.
You're seeing chances, you're seeing opportunities, and you're going for it. It's only going to reflect well on yourself. Like I'm doing a Welsh run with my school. All that's going to be evidenced, and it's a sign of me taking responsibility, trying to better myself. But yeah, I echo where you're saying about the hard hitting courses. The most important ones are the hardest ones. The ones that really like safeguarding the amount of training I've done and I've delivered, and you just think, it's so hard hitting, but it's so important. Now we've covered quite a lot of examples across that in terms of our experience, but I know obviously there's so many different things. So in terms of our evidencing, a lot of it, as I've already said, it's just going to come from feedback. It's just going to come from people. So you got the likes of Twitter. So that's just screenshotting your interactions with parents.
Yeah.
Same with class dojo, screenshotting that interaction with parents. Obviously not specific conversations, but anything that you're reaching out to them. You got progress reviews. So I know these are obviously evidence anyway, but that's kind of the bread and butter and the mentor saying how we're getting on. The only other one, the interesting one is pupil feedback. Not many people have kind of discussed or talked about this before or mentioned it, but kids talk. Kids will always give feedback. Pupil voice is quite a heavy, big thing in schools at the minute. And I know from mine, when we did the immersion week on outdoor learning, we kind of asked the children what avenues they want to go down and learn about. And a few of them said, more lessons with Mr. Griffiths, which again is obviously lovely to see and lovely to hear. But that's an example of the positive relationships we're building. That's an example that what we're doing is being recognised and children enjoying it.
I think as well, you mentioned Twitter there as well, and this really does help us move on to L2 quite nicely, actually, because L2, if I just move on, L2 is exercising corporate responsibility. And I'll read the descriptor. Contractual, pastoral, health and safety, legal and professional responsibilities are known and understood by the teacher. And the reason why I'm linking back to Twitter is because as an evidence piece, we were at the start of the course, we were given photography forms for our mentors to complete.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going to take photos as evidence, ensure that you have that relevant document signed and uploaded onto PLP, because that is meeting L2, exercising corporate responsibilities.
These two are quite nice. They go hand in hand. So the first L one is all about yourself and you're taking responsibility and you're learning and developing yourself.
Yes.
But then I see kind of the corporate responsibility is the counterbalance is the behind the scenes stuff. Is the stuff that we should be doing, having an awareness of, having an understanding of, without it being massively in the forefront.
Yeah, so how can we meet capable? And as Chris alluded to earlier, it's not about the research that you do behind the scenes. It's about the actions you take. And we've already discussed about the relevant forms that we need to fill in before going on to placement, which is absolutely key, especially as being teachers. We are taking photos of the class pupils to present as evidence. And of course, when we're communicating to parents as well, we've got to be sensible. You know, you can't treat them as if they're your mates that who you meet on the pub.
Well, we got a position of power in terms of where we are, and like I said, it's a huge responsibility. So, yeah, a lot of it does rely on paperwork. We
Yeah,
were quite lucky that obviously already some of the evidence is there for us in a sense of when we first signed up and we first started the course, we were given a code of conduct form to sign. That's an evidence. On our two placements now, we've had, I think I'm pretty sure it's a health and safety form and a photography form that we've had to sign for each of them. So again, that's another, already before we start, we got 5 pieces of evidence for the standard.
that's not enough to get capable. It's what else we can do now as well. And of course, as we've already alluded to earlier, attending CPD courses, safeguarding, prevent training, gaining that qualification, there's another evidence piece. Upload that. Following school regulations, policy, procedures. Now, I'm not saying download all of their policies and then upload them onto PLP. No, but what you can do potentially is write a reflection, put in your lesson plans that you are going to follow X, Y, and Z school policy, and especially if you are going out on a school trip. Say, I know Chris, you've done one quite recently. Just filling in a risk assessment form. I think that's a good one. That's a really good one because you thought about the dangers, the potential issues that you're faced with. Even if it's just going to the local woods, like forestry schools, you know, what are the potential hazards there? You can write these down and you can embed your lesson plan around that as well. And that shows, I'd argue, QTS plus standard because you're thinking about everything there and the health and safety of the child as well.
Yeah, as I was just about to do it, and you've mentioned it at the end. But understandably, health and safety is huge. Those children are in your care, for the day. So that health and safety is massive. Whether that's in the classroom, whether that's on the yard, it's really important. So, yeah, doing things like a risk assessment, doing things like planning a trip, anything like that. It's all act as evidence because you're thinking about health and safety. You're thinking about your responsibility as a teacher and keeping the children safe. So they're a couple of really good ideas.
So now we'll talk about our experiences of L2, and we've already spoken about the majority of it. But with professional forms, again, what the university provided us in terms of the code of conduct, the photography forms, so that's already there in place. And of course, the CPD opportunities like prevent and safeguarding.
But yeah, in terms of the delivering PE and outdoor learning lessons, that's from someone that's done a lot of PE teaching. That's my bread and butter, really. I've quite enjoyed it, but it's been quite nice on the placement to slip out of kind of the proper teacher mode with maths, literacy, all that side, and slip into the PE teacher mode where you can have a bit more fun. But again, the importance of health and safety my two schools have been completely different in the health and safety I've had to do. One of them was a big, massive school hall, which was fab. The other one was that we had to walk for 10 minutes to get to the field. So our experiences of the health and safety side of it have been completely different in both my placements. But even within lessons, you've still got stuff to think about. So I'm still having to think about the areas they're using. Is there any dog mess or cat mess or fox mess, anything like that? But you've got, are they safe? Is the equipment ready? Is it any of it damaged? So all these things I've had to think about in my placement, but also school trips. So as you said earlier, I've been quite fortunate enough to go on a school trip. It was only for a walk around the village, but number one, it was the first time that my class had been on a school trip because of COVID last year. But all the things we had to take into account before we could even go on the school trip is, number one, it's crazy because you've got so much to take into account, but also there's lots of good evidence. So obviously you've got to message parents, you've got to speak with parents to get their authorization to go outside of the school. You've got the COVID aspects, so the COVID safety. So you've got the ratio of adults. You've got where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what you're going to touch. Is there sanitation stations? Is there a first aider there? All that's covered in the risk assessment.
And finally, with social media as well, we had a lecture on this. I think it was asynchronized right at the very start of our course, where it talks about being professional on social media, what to do and what not to do. And I think it's quite self-explanatory. You know, you are representing the school, and you're not only yourself as well. Whatever you say and do, that has a reflection on you.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice there would be always be positive and never, ever, ever say and do something which will turn people's heads and question you as a teacher. Just be sensible, be responsible. And of course, when you are using it as evidence, always make sure you blur out their picture if there is a picture of them and their Twitter name or Instagram name, whatever form of social media you're using. Never give out personal details. So yeah, so these are now examples of evidence that myself and Chris, we've used on our PRP. And again, risk assessments, that's a powerful tool to use. I would highly recommend you get one done and show them in your planning how you're going to use this risk assessment to ensure that you provide a safe, healthy environment for all pupils and of course the staff who are involved as well. The observations and blue books, again, have that conversation with your mentors, see the notes that they've written down and embed them into your next lesson plan, because that will show you are progressing and learning as a teacher as well. Planning a school trip, well, again, that comes under risk assessments and your planning, and ensure that you have the relevant documentation and the appropriate personnel on board as well. So who is your health and safety officer? Who is your first aid officer? And of course, the progress reviews. We all are going through progress reviews now. I believe we got CAP 3 coming up, and that is a big one for many of us, because at CAP 3, ideally, we should be hitting capables, or if not, we'll be thereabouts. And I strongly believe that if we include as many evidence pieces as we possibly can, your progress reviews will show capable by the end of placement.
Yeah, so that's all kind of about L1 and L2, our kind of reflective discussion. The next one we're going to be looking at is P6, so the 4 purposes for learning, and P9, the blended learning experiences. So that'll be on next Tuesday's episode. So feel free to get involved. And like I said, if you want to know anything, just let us know.
So yeah, as Chris mentioned, please get in contact with us. Here are our Twitter details. And as I alluded to earlier in the episode, if you feel comfortable with us showing your evidence pieces and you want to get involved and discuss a few things with us, we're more than happy for you to do so. Again, this is about sharing best practice. We want everyone to pass this course and we want everyone to be successful teachers going forward. Right then, so that's it for this week. We hope you have a lovely week and we will see you next Tuesday. So, ho val.
Au revoir.